If you're a diehard Browns fan and love breaking down the game like we do, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a blitz. There's no bigger roller coaster in Cleveland sports right now than what's happening with the Browns this week. Between injury updates that could completely reshape the defensive front and a quarterback storyline that feels ripped straight out of a reality TV show, fans don't even know where to look first. It's one of those weeks where the drama is as heavy off the field as the hits are on the field, and it's all happening just as the team prepares for its trip overseas. Let's start with what might be the most significant development. Myles Garrett, the defensive anchor, the heartbeat of that front seven, got some good news on the injury front. Garrett, who had been listed as a non-participant earlier, was upgraded to limited during Thursday's walkthrough. Now, that might not sound like a massive deal at first, but when you're talking about one of the most dominant defensive ends in football, a guy who already has 4 sacks this season and leads the league with 8 tackles for loss, that tiny shift on the injury report is enough to inject a fresh wave of hope into the locker room. Head coach Kevin Stefanski has been careful with his wording, calling Garrett day-to-day, which is basically coach speak for, "We're hopeful, but we won't push it." The Browns know that rushing him back too fast could be risky, but they also know they're simply not the same team without him causing havoc in the trenches. Every offensive coordinator in the league spends sleepless nights figuring out how to deal with Garrett, so even a limited presence from him could tilt the balance on game day. Of course, it wasn't all sunshine and good vibes on the injury report. While Garrett's situation offered a glimmer of optimism, another key piece of the defense found himself newly added to the list. Cornerback Greg Newsome popped up with a hamstring issue, and hamstrings are never something you want to see attached to a defensive back. A corner relies on explosiveness, quick breaks, and that extra gear to stick with the league's fastest receivers. Being limited, even on a Thursday walkthrough, raises eyebrows and probably forces the Browns coaching staff to start considering contingency plans in case Newsome can't go full throttle on Sunday. Meanwhile, right tackle Jack Conklin continues to battle an elbow problem, staying in that limited category. For an offensive lineman, leverage and strength are everything, and the elbow is central to that. The Browns need stability on that line, especially now with a quarterback situation that's been anything but stable. At least there was some encouraging movement elsewhere. Safety Grant Delpit and tight end David Njoku, both banged up in previous weeks, were upgraded to full participants. Having Delpit's range on the back end of the defense and Njoku's athleticism at tight end available again adds depth and versatility. But there was also some bad news tucked away. Defensive tackle Mike Hill Jr. didn't even make the trip to England and has been ruled out entirely. Losing interior depth is a blow, particularly when playing overseas, where travel and fatigue can already stretch a roster thin. While the injury report itself was enough to keep fans debating, the quarterback situation stole the spotlight this week. The Browns officially named Dillon Gabriel as their new starting quarterback moving forward, and while that decision in itself was headline-worthy, it was Shedeur Sanders' reaction that lit the internet on fire. Instead of taking questions in a straightforward way, Sanders responded with a mime act. Yes, a mime act. He didn't say a single word, just mouthed responses silently, leaving the reporters stunned and the clip instantly viral. In today's sports culture, where every moment is amplified and dissected on social media, it didn't take long before that video was everywhere. Fans were split right down the middle. Some defended Sanders, arguing that he doesn't owe the media a soundbite and that protecting himself from being misquoted is actually a smart move. Others blasted the performance as immature, claiming it was disrespectful not only to the reporters doing their jobs, but also to his teammates, who now had to deal with the distraction. And when the criticism came, it came from some pretty respected voices. Former Super Bowl champion Jason McCourty weighed in on the Jim Rome show, and he didn't hold back. McCourty pointed out that Sanders has been in the spotlight his entire life, from his days as a high school phenom to the bright lights of college football, and now into the NFL. That spotlight, though, has shifted. It's no longer about him being the center of the show. It's about him fitting into a team where the attention isn't always flattering or focused on performance. McCourty made a sharp observation. The fact that the only reason reporters are coming to Sanders now is to see how he reacts to losing his spot, not because of his play on the field, has to sting. For a player used to being the star, that reality check is tough to swallow. But, as McCourty stressed, the way you handle those moments matters even more than the way you handle the easy ones. He questioned why any NFL team would want its third-string quarterback, someone not even in the game plan, to be going viral for antics inside the locker room. His advice was blunt but fair. Sanders needs to grow up fast. The transition from college football, where individuality and personality often make you larger than life, to the NFL, where professionalism and maturity dictate longevity, is not always smooth. Sanders is experiencing that turbulence in real time. McCourty warned that if these off-field distractions keep piling up, head coach Kevin Stefanski might hesitate to ever truly trust him as the potential face of the franchise. And that's a crucial point. Being an NFL quarterback is about far more than arm strength and athleticism. It's about leadership, composure, and setting an example for the locker room. You don't want the guy who could one day run your offense to be remembered for miming through interviews while the team navigates a tough stretch. When you take both stories together, the injury updates and the quarterback drama, you get a snapshot of a Browns team standing at a crossroads. They're dealing with physical setbacks to key players while also juggling emotional and cultural ones inside the locker room. The narrative heading into the weekend overseas isn't just about who will line up on Sunday, but about the broader question of identity. Can the Browns steady themselves despite these distractions? Or will they let the noise, both injury-related and media-driven, throw them off course? The truth is, this is the NFL. These are the moments that test franchises. Injuries are inevitable, and every team has to adapt. Quarterback controversies are nothing new, and the great organizations find ways to weather them without losing focus. But when both storms hit at the same time, when your defensive star is questionable and your young quarterback is going viral for the wrong reasons, the challenge becomes that much harder. The Browns will need leadership, maturity, and a clear sense of direction to push through. If Garrett can get back on the field and make his presence felt, that alone could spark the defense. If Gabriel can settle into his role as the starter without the shadow of Sanders' antics looming, the offense might find its footing. But both of those ifs are hanging heavy in the air right now. As Cleveland prepares for its game in England, one thing is certain: all eyes will be on them. Not just for what happens between the whistles, but for how the team conducts itself before and after. Will Garrett be out there terrorizing quarterbacks again? Will Newsom's hamstring hold up? Will Sanders find a way to move forward without turning every press session into a spectacle? The answers to those questions will shape not just this week's game, but the broader perception of a Browns team that has the talent to compete but needs the discipline to actually win. And as every fan knows, discipline off the field is often just as important as execution on it. Enjoying the content so far? Smash that like button and drop your take in the comments. We want to hear what you think about the Browns this season. There's a storm brewing in Cleveland, and this time, it has nothing to do with the weather coming off Lake Erie. It's something deeper, more emotional, and potentially more explosive. Picture this. One of the most feared defenders in the entire NFL, Myles Garrett, the face of the Browns defense, a perennial All-Pro, the locker room alpha, is furious. And the reason? A jaw-dropping, controversial comment involving none other than Shedeur Sanders, the high-profile quarterback and son of the legendary Deion Sanders. Now, let's set the stage here. We all know Shedeur. He's been making waves in college football, both on and off the field. Flashy, confident, calculated. A talent with NFL dreams and the swagger to match. Ever since he started lighting it up under his father's guidance at Colorado, the buzz has been nonstop. Analysts can't stop talking about him. Social media is obsessed, and mock drafts are already slotting him into the top 5, sometimes even at number 1 overall. But where there's hype, there's also scrutiny. And sometimes, that spotlight can rub the wrong people the wrong way, especially veterans who've clawed their way through the mud and earned every ounce of respect in the league. Rumors began swirling late last week that during a closed-door training session, attended by a mix of NFL veterans and rising college stars, Shedeur might have said something that didn't sit well with the pros in attendance. The quote, according to whispers coming out of that circle, was supposedly arrogant, dismissive of NFL competition, and included a subtle jab at the Browns' defensive unit. Ain't no defense in the league I'm scared of, the quote reportedly went. And then the kicker. I'd dice up those Cleveland boys easy. Now hold up. Let's be clear. This hasn't been confirmed on record. But the fact that this phrase is making its way through the NFL grapevine has already caused tremors. And the loudest rumble came straight from Myles Garrett's camp. Insiders close to the Browns have hinted that Garrett was livid when he caught wind of the remark. Not annoyed, not disappointed. Livid. We're talking red hot, 0 to 100 real quick. Garrett's response, allegedly delivered behind closed doors, but now leaking out in fragments, was no less dramatic. Tell that kid to step on the field. I'll be waiting. Let's see if he's still talking when he's picking turf out of his teeth. Boom. That's the kind of line that echoes. That's not just trash talk. That's a warning shot from a man who's built his career on silencing quarterbacks, turning offensive lines into revolving doors, and doing it with a kind of focused rage that terrifies opponents. And let's be real, Garrett is not the type to overreact to media noise. He's not one to bite on every comment, every hot take. So if he took this personally, there's a reason. Inside the Browns organization, the situation has reportedly caused a stir. Younger players are said to be buzzing about it, sharing the quote in group chats, fueling the fire. Veterans are backing Garrett, not because they're necessarily offended by Shedeur's alleged comments, but because they see Garrett's reaction as a rallying cry. It's a respect thing, an NFL badge of honor thing. You don't come at the league's top defenders, especially not unproven, especially not from college, and expect that to go unnoticed. What's fascinating about this entire situation is how it's polarizing opinions. Some former players and analysts are brushing it off, calling it typical college bravado. Every young QB thinks he can conquer the world until he takes his first real hit, one ex-linebacker quipped on a podcast. Others, though, see it differently. They see it as a new generation of players being too quick to disrespect the grind. You don't challenge a lion unless you're ready to bleed, said one AFC scout. Garrett's been feasting on QBs for years. That kid better pray he doesn't land in the AFC North. And imagine if Shedeur Sanders does end up in Cleveland. Oh boy, the thought alone is enough to send the NFL world into a frenzy. Some are already joking about it. Put Garrett and Shedeur in the same locker room, and Hard Knocks would win an Emmy, tweeted one fan. But all jokes aside, that scenario would demand some serious conversations, some real accountability, and maybe even a few heated moments before mutual respect could be forged. Could Garrett mentor a rookie QB who once called him out, even indirectly? Would the locker room divide? Or would it elevate both players? There's also the Deion Sanders factor. Coach Prime has never been one to back down, and if he catches wind of the growing storm, he might feel compelled to defend his son, or at least put the media spin machine into overdrive. And let's not forget, Deion has deep NFL roots, deep respect from former players, and a talent for turning controversy into brand elevation. If this becomes a headline, don't be surprised if Deion uses it as fuel, not fire. But at the heart of this saga is a much bigger narrative, the clash between eras. Between the established dominance of NFL veterans like Myles Garrett, who fought through injuries, losses, wins, setbacks, and redemption, and the rising confidence of the new school, led by players like Shedeur Sanders who've grown up in the spotlight, armed with social media followings, nil deals, and a platform that demands attention. It's not just about football anymore. It's about perception. And when perception collides with pride, you get situations like this. The Browns, meanwhile, have remained silent. No official statements, no PR spin, nothing from head coach Kevin Stefanski. That silence is telling. Internally, they may be hoping the noise dies down. But anyone who knows the NFL knows this kind of chatter doesn't just fade. It simmers. It lingers. And come draft season, when Shedeur's name starts flying around war rooms and Garrett is prepping for another campaign of destruction, this incident, this moment, could come roaring back into relevance. And you know what? Maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe this is exactly what the league needs. A new rivalry. A generational standoff. A storyline that blends bravado with legacy, promise with proven dominance. Myles Garrett isn't just playing for sacks. He's defending a code. Shedeur Sanders isn't just gunning for the draft. He's aiming to change the conversation. And somewhere in between, the NFL finds itself at a fascinating crossroads. One thing's for sure. The next time Shedeur steps into a media scrum, someone's going to ask him about that quote. Whether it was real, exaggerated, or taken out of context won't matter. The moment has already made its impact. And as for Garrett, don't expect him to backtrack. If anything, he's circling a date in his mind, the day he finally lines up across from Sanders and gets the chance to let his pads do the talking. Thanks for riding with us on another Browns Blitz. If you liked the video, share it with a fellow fan, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so you're always part of the Dawg Pound conversation. Go Browns!